My name is Jack Harper, and for most of my life, I've been the guy everyone called when they needed something. My mom needed a new roof? I paid for it. My dad wanted to retire early? I covered the last few years of his mortgage. My little brother Tim crashed his car 3 times before he turned 25. I bought him a 4th one, because, Jack, he's just going through a rough patch. They said I was the golden son. The one who made it. The one who owed it to the family for all their sacrifices. They loved me. So long as I kept paying. Things changed after I married Ava. Ava was never what my family expected. She didn't come from money, didn't go to college, didn't have a pedigree. But she had grit. She worked 2 jobs to help her mom after her dad walked out. She was real. Honest. Loyal. Everything my family pretended to be. My parents smiled when I introduced her, but I saw the shift in their eyes. That look that said, she's not one of us. But I didn't care. I was in love. We got married at a quiet little vineyard in Oregon. Small, elegant. My family hated it. They complained the food was too organic, the venue was too remote, and my mom actually said, "This doesn't feel like a Harper wedding." Like that meant something. Still, I didn't push back. Not then. I should've. When Ava got pregnant, I thought maybe things would change. We moved into a modest home just outside Seattle, close enough to my family to visit, far enough to breathe. I thought a baby might soften them. But even when our daughter Lily was born, the visits were rare. And when they did come, it always ended with subtle jabs, about Ava's cooking, her clothes, the way she spoke to Lily like an equal instead of a child. I started pulling back. Quietly. Stopped picking up every bill. Said no when Tim asked for $5,000 to invest in a crypto project. My dad huffed, my mom gave me the silent treatment for 3 weeks, and Tim sent me a 5-paragraph guilt text about how I forgot where I came from. I didn't forget. I just stopped pretending I owed them for it. Then came the family reunion in Napa. My dad turned 65, and my mom insisted we do something big. A week at a luxury villa in wine country, with a private chef, wine tastings, massages, the whole works. I told them it was too much. Don't worry, my mom said, we'll all chip in. You can guess what happened. 2 weeks before the trip, I got a call. My mom was so sorry, but Tim lost his job and couldn't cover his share. My uncle's business was struggling. My dad forgot to set aside the money. I was the fallback. Again. I wired over $42,000. Ava didn't say a word, just looked at me while holding Lily, her eyes hollow. I told her, it's the last time. It should have been. We arrived at the villa and immediately, things felt off. The chef they hired was cold to Ava. I later learned my mom told her to prepare American classics because Ava wasn't used to fancy food. My aunt refused to sit next to her at dinner. My cousin called her a farm wife under his breath. But what shattered everything was what I overheard on the 4th night. I was walking Lily to sleep around the patio, and I heard my mom and aunt talking in the kitchen. "She's lucky Jack settled," my aunt said. My mom laughed. "Oh, please. You've seen her. She's trailer trash. Jack just doesn't see it because she fawns over him." I froze. Trailer trash. That word cracked something open in me. Ava had never once complained, not about the insults, not about the way they treated her like a stray dog I brought home. She'd stayed quiet for me. For Lily. And I'd let them do it. That night, after I put Lily down, I sat with Ava on the patio. I told her everything I heard. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She just nodded, her eyes glistening, and said, "I know." "You knew?" She looked at me, calm as ever. "Of course I did. I just didn't want to be the reason you walked away from your family." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I walked into the main dining room during breakfast. Everyone was laughing. Eating croissants. Acting like nothing had happened. I tapped my glass and said, "I want to say something." They quieted. "I paid for this trip," I said. "Every penny. The wine. The food. The massages. The goddamn lavender-scented pillows. I paid for all of it. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, if I gave enough, you'd give Ava the respect she deserves." Tim chuckled. "Jack, don't be dramatic." "Shut up," I snapped. "Just for once, shut the hell up and listen." No one spoke. "I heard what you said about my wife. And I want you to know this, Ava is worth more than every one of you combined. She's stronger, kinder, and more loyal than any of you ever were to me." My mom's face turned pale. "Jack. You called her trailer trash." After everything she's put up with from you, you said that. I turned to leave. We're leaving today. You can figure out how to pay for the rest of the week yourselves. I've cancelled all the bookings in my name. Good luck finding a ride to the airport. Ava and I packed our bags, loaded Lily in the car, and drove away. I didn't look back. We didn't say a word for the first hour of the drive back to Seattle. Ava stared out the window, Lily slept in her car seat, and my hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My head was full of static, rage, shame, and something else I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. I had finally walked away from the people who drained me dry and then spat on the one person who ever truly had my back. But underneath that relief was another thought gnawing at me. They'll come crawling back. They always do. And they did. 3 days later. It started with a voicemail from my mom. Jack, sweetheart, we're all really hurt by what happened. Your Uncle Paul had to put the rest of the villa bill on his credit card. You blindsided us. That wasn't fair to the family. Not a word about Ava. Not a word about calling her trailer trash. I didn't call back. Then came the texts from Tim. Bro, we good? You're only gonna ghost us over a joke? Simon, man, don't be soft. Family's family. I deleted every message. I wanted to be done. But they weren't done with me. A week later, I got an email from my cousin Megan. It was an invitation to my mom's surprise birthday party. A chill backyard barbecue, she wrote, just bring Ava and Lily, let's clear the air. Clear the air? That was their idea of an apology? I didn't reply. Then my dad showed up at my house. He didn't even text first, just knocked on the door like nothing happened. Ava answered. She held Lily close to her chest and stared him down. I'm here to talk to my son, he said, trying to force a smile. Ava didn't move. He doesn't want to talk to you. I raised him, young lady. You think you can come between a man and his family? I stepped into the doorway behind her. I told you to stay away. He scoffed. Oh, so this is how it is now? You think you're too good for us? No, I said. I finally realized you're not good for me. There's a difference. He glared at me like he wanted to swing. After everything we did for you. Everything you took from me, I cut in. The money. The favors. The guilt. You raised me to think love was a bill I had to keep paying. But you never gave me anything without expecting a return. He went quiet. And then he said the thing that snapped the last string. Maybe if you married someone better, this wouldn't have happened. I slammed the door in his face. That night, Ava held me while I stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched, mind racing. I want to make sure they never use me again, I whispered. She kissed my forehead. Then do it. So I did. The next morning, I started with the bank accounts. For years, I'd kept my parents as secondary contacts on my personal savings, just in case something happened to me. I removed them. I closed the shared emergency fund I'd created when Tim lost his second job. I shut down the family account we used for holidays and emergencies, which, conveniently, was funded only by me. Then I called our financial advisor. I'd set up a trust years ago for my daughter. Quietly. Privately. I made sure Ava had full control now. My family would never get near it. Next, I called the family business accountant, because yes, somehow I had become the silent investor in 3 different ventures run by my relatives. I sold my shares. Took a loss on one of them, but I didn't care. I wanted out. Ava watched me in silence, supporting me with a calm fierceness that I didn't know I needed. Every time I hung up a call, she'd hand me Lily, who babbled and giggled like she could sense the storm passing. But I wasn't done. Because they still thought they had leverage. Tim, especially. He was working part-time at a tech startup that I helped fund through a friend of mine. I had vouched for him, pulled strings to get him that job after his 3rd DUI. I emailed the CEO and told him everything. Tim's history. The lies. The manipulation. I didn't ask them to fire him, but I made it clear I no longer backed him. He was let go 2 days later. That's when the calls really ramped up. Tim left a voicemail screaming that I ruined his life. My mother sobbed in hers, telling me I was tearing the family apart. My dad sent me a 5-word text. You are dead to us. I laughed when I read it. Finally, I was free. But what they didn't realize, what they still couldn't understand, was that I didn't need them anymore. I had Ava. I had Lily. And I had peace. A week later, I posted one photo to social media. It was me, Ava, and Lily in front of a cozy cabin in the woods. Just us. No filters, no captions. Ava smiled like she hadn't in years. Lily had her arms stretched out toward the trees. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't explain anything. But they saw it. Because the comments started rolling in. From old friends. Co-workers. Distant relatives. Good for you, Jack. You finally chose peace. You look free. I was. Truly. But I wasn't done just yet. Because now. It was time to rebuild my life from the ground up, with only the people who deserved to be in it. By the time the first snowfall hit Seattle, it had been nearly a month since I cut my family off completely. No calls. No texts. No more guilt. No more manipulation. For the first time in my adult life, I could breathe. Ava and I started cooking dinners together. We took Lily to the park on Sundays. I wasn't glued to my phone waiting for some new crisis to fix. I wasn't bankrolling other people's messes. It felt like waking up from a decades-long coma. But peace has a way of drawing attention. And apparently, my silence was louder than any scream, because my family started falling apart faster than I expected. It started with Megan's bakery. She had opened it 3 years ago with money I loaned her after she failed to get a small business grant. She never paid me back, and I never pushed. Family, right? Now, without my monthly support gift, she couldn't keep up with the rent. She posted a sob story on Instagram, claiming her landlord was greedy and crushing her dreams. I didn't comment. I just watched as the comments flooded in from customers asking why she hadn't paid her workers in 2 weeks. Then came the real bombshell. Uncle Paul's second mortgage defaulted. I only found out because a former coworker sent me a link to a foreclosure notice. Turns out the house they'd used as collateral for another family member's failing investment was actually in my name. Yep. My uncle convinced me to co-sign a second mortgage on his property 5 years ago during one of his "this is our big break" schemes. I was young, stupid, and still desperate for approval. Now, it was coming back to bite him. But not me. Because 6 months ago, on Ava's advice, I'd quietly moved all joint liabilities to a trust that protected me, and only me. Paul never read the fine print. The foreclosure hit him, not me. When the bank came for the house, Paul called me in a panic. Jack. You've got to help me. The bank says you're off the loan now? What the hell happened? You didn't read the update I sent you last summer? I thought that was legal mumbo-jumbo. No, I said. It was freedom. Click. After that, the begging began. Mom emailed me a heartfelt letter about preserving our family legacy. She attached photos of Christmases past, me and Tim in matching pajamas, me carrying Megan on my shoulders during a snowball fight. Nice memories. All funded by me. I forwarded the email to a folder titled, Emotional Blackmail. Then Tim called. Not to apologize. Not to make things right. But to ask if I could help him bridge a gap in rent. You don't even have to give me the money directly, he said. Just call my landlord and tell him I'm good for it. You're a respected guy. Your word means something. I stared at the phone in disbelief. You insulted my wife, Tim. It was a joke. Jesus, man, are you really gonna hold a grudge over that? It wasn't a joke. It was cruelty dressed up as humor. And I'm done being the family ATM. He scoffed. Wow. You're really letting her control you, huh? No, I said, my voice ice cold. For the first time in my life, I'm in control. And I hung up. They say people show their true colors when the money runs out. My family didn't just show their colors, they spray painted them all over the walls. Within 2 weeks, I learned. My dad's credit card had been declined at his favorite steakhouse. Megan moved back in with Grandma. Tim was couch surfing with a friend who posted a TikTok rant about moochers who think being related means you owe them rent. I didn't gloat. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly, I felt sad. Not for them. For who I used to be. The version of me that would have dropped everything to save them. That version lived in fear. He thought love was earned through sacrifice. Through silence. Through swallowing his pride and always being the bigger person. That version of me was gone. One cold Saturday morning, Ava and I took Lily to a tree farm just outside the city. We wanted to start our own tradition, cutting down our first real Christmas tree as a family. As I strapped the tree to the roof of the car, Ava wrapped her arms around me. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. It just hit me. This is our first Christmas. Just us. No drama, she smiled. No obligations. No guilt. She leaned her head against my chest. You gave them everything, Jack. They never gave you anything back. I nodded. And now, they never will again. That night, I sat in the glow of twinkling lights while Lily played with ornaments. I finally felt like I had something that wasn't built on guilt or debt or fake affection. It was built on love. Real love. And as the snow started to fall outside our window, I whispered to myself, I'm never going back. The quiet didn't last long. It never does when you come from a family that feeds on chaos. A week before Christmas, I got a knock at the door. Not a text. Not a call. An actual knock. Ava looked at me, tense. Are you expecting anyone? I shook my head and peeked through the peephole. It was Megan. She looked disheveled. Like someone who had been living out of a suitcase and crying herself to sleep. I opened the door slowly. She blinked, clearly not expecting to see me face to face. Jack, she said, forcing a smile, can we talk? I didn't move. About what? I messed up, she said quickly. We all did. But it's Christmas, and what? I interrupted. You thought if you showed up looking pitiful, I'd invite you in for hot cocoa and pretend the last 6 months didn't happen? She flinched. I'm your sister, she whispered, eyes glistening. Doesn't that mean anything anymore? I took a breath, trying to hold back the storm in my chest. I wanted it to mean something, I said. For years, I begged for this family to see me as more than a wallet. I paid for your dreams. Your rent. Your therapy. And all I got in return was mockery when I finally chose to stand up for myself. Tim regrets what he said, she muttered. No, he doesn't, I replied. He regrets losing his cash flow. She looked down, lips trembling. I'm just asking for a little help. Just to get through the holidays. I stared at her, then calmly stepped outside and closed the door behind me. No, I said. You're asking me to go back to being the person you could use without consequence. That version of me is gone. Megan looked up, fury rising behind the tears. So you're just going to abandon your family? My family is inside that house, I said, pointing toward the door. My wife. My daughter. That's who I protect now. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Merry Christmas, Megan. And I walked back inside. Ava was waiting, arms crossed. She really came here? Yep. Want some whiskey in your eggnog? Yes. Please. We spent that night in front of the fire, watching Lily build a snowman out of marshmallows. I wanted to feel triumphant, but I just felt tired. I was detoxing from years of emotional poison. But the worst was still coming. On Christmas morning, as Ava and I helped Lily unwrap a giant teddy bear, I got a call. From a number I hadn't seen in years. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Jack, said the voice on the other end. Deep. Gravelly. Familiar. It was my father. Dad, I said flatly. I heard Megan stopped by, he said. Said you slammed the door in her face. I didn't slam it, I replied. I closed it. There was a pause. Then a sigh. Look, I know things have gotten messy, but this family. We're not perfect. Never claimed to be. But we're still blood. I used to think that meant something, I said. Now I know it just means shared DNA. It doesn't entitle anyone to my money or my forgiveness. You're angry, he said. I get it. I'm not angry, I said quietly. I'm done. You can't just walk away from your own blood, Jack. I laughed bitterly. You all walked away from me every time you needed something. You just didn't notice because I stayed. But now? I'm finally walking, and you can't handle it. Don't do this. You think that wife of yours is going to stay forever? You think your kid won't resent you one day? I froze. And that's when I realized, he hadn't called to reconcile. He'd called to wound me. You know what? I said calmly. I hope one day my daughter resents me. For not setting boundaries sooner. For letting toxic people into her life. For teaching her that being used is the price of being loved. But you don't get to talk about my family, not anymore. Click. I didn't wait for a reply. I blocked his number. Then I turned to Ava and pulled her close. He tried to get in my head, I said. Like always. But he didn't, she whispered. No, I said. He didn't. 3 days later, I got a certified letter in the mail. A formal request from a lawyer representing my Uncle Paul and my father. They were threatening legal action. Apparently, they believed I had a moral obligation to help repay the debts they racked up under shared family ventures. They even cited verbal agreements and tried to claim that some of the money I'd given over the years was part of an ongoing business relationship. I laughed out loud reading it. They were desperate. I sent it to my own lawyer, one I'd hired 6 months ago when Ava and I started this journey. He wrote a beautiful response, filled with legal jargon and ironclad disclaimers. But I added my own personal note at the bottom. If this is how you want to play it, fine. But let me be clear, I owe you nothing. Not in blood. Not in money. Not in guilt. This is the last you'll ever hear from me. A week later, I received confirmation, they were dropping everything. Not because they wanted to. But because they had no case. They thought I'd cave. That I'd feel so ashamed, so conflicted, that I'd fold like always. But I didn't. This time, I stood tall. And I was only getting started. 3 months passed. 3 peaceful, silent months. No phone calls. No surprise visits. No drama-filled holidays or guilt-tripping texts. Just quiet. Ava and I thrived. I finally took a break from work and spent time with Lily, real, uninterrupted time. I picked her up from school, we built pillow forts, we danced in the living room to bad 80s music. And for once, I felt present in my own life. It was a strange feeling, freedom. But peace, as I'd learned, always comes with a price. And sometimes, that price is watching everything you once protected burn down. Without lifting a finger. It started with an email. From an old mutual contact. Someone who used to do freelance accounting for my dad's business. Subject line, you need to see this. Attached was a PDF, dozens of pages of financial records. Turns out, without my money funneling into the family business, things had spiraled fast. Unpaid taxes. Missed supplier payments. Even Megan's boutique, once touted as the next big thing, had quietly closed down. My father had tried to take out another loan to stay afloat, but his credit was shot. And when they couldn't keep up appearances, they started turning on each other. Megan blamed my father for bad leadership. My father accused Uncle Paul of embezzling funds. Paul claimed I'd promised to invest and bailed. The whole house of cards collapsed. I sat at my desk, stunned. But not surprised. A few days later, I got a message. Not from any of them. From my mother. She hadn't spoken to me in over a year. Not since the dinner when they all ganged up on me. Her message was short. Your father's sick. Hospital bills are piling up. Your sister and Paul are out of options. I know things were said. But this is your family. Please. Help. I stared at the screen for a long time. A year ago, this would have broken me. I would have rushed to the hospital, blank check in hand, ready to forgive and forget. But I changed. And more importantly, I'd learned that forgiveness doesn't mean walking back into the fire. Ava found me reading the message. What are you thinking? She asked gently. I turned the laptop around so she could see. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, softly, do you want to help them? I looked her in the eyes. No, I said. I want to help. But I don't. Not anymore. And just like that, I gave myself permission. Permission to walk away, for good. A week later, I heard from someone else. This time, it was Megan again. She showed up at my office, unannounced. No tears this time. No makeup either. Just raw, tired, desperate. 5 minutes, she said, voice cracking. That's all I ask. I let her in. She sat across from me and stared at her hands for a while. Dad's dying, she said. They don't know how long he has. The stress, the debt. It's eaten him alive. And yeah, maybe we deserve it. Maybe you're better off without us. But if there's anything left in you, anything, please. She met my eyes. Please don't let him die thinking his son hated him. I leaned back in my chair. I don't hate him, I said. I just don't owe him anything anymore. Her lip quivered. He wasn't a perfect father, but... No, I cut in. He wasn't a father. He was a financier. A manipulator. He saw me as a golden goose, not a son. And the only time any of you come around is when you want something. She didn't deny it. I'm not heartless, Megan, I added. But I'm not a fool either. I know, she said quietly. I didn't know how bad we were until you left. You were holding us all together. And when you stopped. She looked away. That wasn't my responsibility, I said. I gave until it bled. And when I stopped, instead of reflecting, you tried to punish me for choosing myself. A long pause. Then she stood. You won't hear from me again, she said. I just thought you should know. I nodded. Goodbye, Megan. She walked out of my life without another word. And I didn't follow her. Spring rolled in. Lily turned 5. We threw her a backyard party with bubbles and cake and one of those inflatable castles. She wore a crown and declared herself the queen of everything. It felt fitting. That night, after she fell asleep, Ava and I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping cider. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. For the first time in a long time. "Yeah. I'm proud of you," she said. "Me too," I said softly. I finally learned how to say no. How to protect what matters. We sat in silence for a while, watching the stars. "I used to think family was about blood," I said. "But it's not. It's about who shows up when you're down. Who celebrates your wins without resenting them. Who loves you without conditions." Ava smiled and leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're building your own legacy now," she said. And she was right. Weeks later, I got one last letter. Handwritten. From my mother. It wasn't a plea. Not this time. It was an apology. She said she'd spent her whole life watching my father belittle me, while she stayed silent to keep the peace. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just understanding. And she said something I'll never forget. "You were the best of us. And we broke you trying to make you small enough to control. I hope you never shrink again." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a box with Lily's drawings and Ava's first love note. Some things are worth keeping, not because they're pretty, but because they remind you how far you've come. I looked around at my life, at the woman who stood by me, the daughter who looked up to me, and the man I'd finally become. And I knew, without a doubt, I didn't need to go back. I'd already won.